All right, today we're going to work on manually graphing quadratic functions, graphing them without a calculator per se, or at least not a graphing calculator. And so, we've some key features here. Quadratic functions have x squared. We've talked about that before. It's going to be a U-shaped graph. We've talked about that before. And the standard form is pretty important. And so you must know, you must know along the way here that you're going to have a, and then you're going to have x squared. All right, then you might have an x there, and that's your b with the x. Right? And then you're going to have a c out at the end. Now, b and c could be 0, so you might not have an x, or you might not have a number by itself, but you're always going to have an x squared. That's what makes it quadratic. So a can't be 0. But you're going to have to identify a, b, and c every time and get used to that. If a is positive, then the parabola is going to open up. If a is negative, then the parabola is going to open down. And so it's fully based on right here, whether it's positive or negative. It's never going to be 0, so it's either bigger than 0 or less than 0, or bigger than 0 or positive numbers, smaller than 0 or negative numbers. Okay? And so axis of symmetry is going to be, very important. If you think of the parabola or U shape, the axis of symmetry is the line that splits it right down the middle, right? So it's equal on the left and right sides. And so we got to start by finding that. And so the axis of symmetry is from the equation negative b over 2a. And so you want to have x equals negative b over 2a for the axis of symmetry. The vertex and y-intercept, all right, are the next things you're going to find. The vertex, if you have a U shape, the vertex is on the axis of symmetry. So you'd have an axis of symmetry splitting it up, and this point right here would be your vertex. And so you use the x. You use the x from the axis of symmetry. So that answer is this. And then you plug it into the original equation. All right, so you had f of x equals something, all right, in standard form probably. So you just plug the answer, the x answer, in to find the vertex. The y-intercept, super easy. If it's in standard form, a x squared plus bx plus c, then the y-intercept is just the c. So again, you're going to have an axis of symmetry you're going to find first. Right? Then you're going to use that. That should be x equals. All right? X equals negative b over 2a. You're going to use that x from negative b over 2a. And you're going to plug it back into the equation. And then that whole thing is your vertex. Right? The c is your y-intercept. Right? And so right here it says reflection of y-intercept. So let's say this is 2 away from the axis of symmetry. Then this one is also going to be 2 away from the axis of symmetry. If it opens up or if it opens down, all right, it either is going to have a maximum or minimum. So if it opens up, then the vertex is at the bottom of the valley. All right, so if it's opening up, then the vertex is at the bottom, or the change of direction is at the bottom. And so that is a minimum value. If it opens down, then the vertex is at the top of the hill. If it opens down, then the vertex or change of direction is at the top, or is a maximum value. And so you're going to have to be able to tell me whether it's a maximum or minimum, and then what the value is, but just the y from the vertex. So it'd be like the maximum is y equals, or the minimum is y equals. And so you're going to have to be able to identify the maximum and minimum values. along with the domain and range. Well, the domain, notice here, the domain, both if it opens up and if it opens down, it never really stops going left or right. It's going left and right slowly, but it's going left and right forever. So the domain is going to be all reals. The range is either going to be y greater than or equal to or y less than or equal to, depending on whether it opens up. If it opens up, then the y values are getting bigger, greater. If it opens down, they're getting smaller, lesser. All right. And you're just going to use the y from the vertex. And so if this was a -2 here, then it'd be y greater than or equal to -2. If this is a +3, then it'd be y less than or equal to +3 for the range. And so let's break this down. Let's look at example 1. Graph f of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 3. Well, a is 1 because it's 1x squared. B is 2 because it's 2x. And C is -3. A is positive, so it opens up. Right? I'm going to plug in, all right, negative b was 2, over 2a, a was 1, gives me -2 over 2, gives me -1. Right? And so x equals -1 is my axis of symmetry. Now I'm going to go ahead and graph that. That's right here. And so I'm going to put that dashed line because remember, we just need to see the U shape. So this is just a guide. And I don't know anything else. So I'm going to go way down here. Right. That's my axis of symmetry. Now to find my vertex, I have to plug that in. So it's really f of -1. Right. Going f, what does that mean? That means we're using this equation, f of x. Instead of x, we're plugging -1 in. And so instead of x squared plus 2x minus 3, we're going to plug -1 in. And so -1 squared plus 2 times -1 minus 3. -1 squared. -1 times -1 is +1. 2 times -1 is -2. Minus 3 just stays -3. And so the whole thing equals -4. And so my vertex, the x value stayed from the axis of symmetry. The y value came from plugging it in. The y-intercept is just the c. So it's just -3. At that point, let's start talking about the graph. All right, let's graph -1, -4 is right here. And so that's my vertex. -3 is my y-intercept, so it's right there. And so I have to realize that that is just 1 away from the line, from the axis of symmetry line. It's 1 to the right of that axis of symmetry is where the y-intercept is. 1 to the right, so I go 1 to the left, right? And I put a point right there. That is where I'm going to use to make my graph. And so now that I have those points, I can start to draw my graph. And now this is where I would warn you to be careful. Don't go too big. All right. If your dots are close together like that, just make your U shape, start of your U shape pretty small, and you're done. All right, with the graph. Now let's talk about the other features that we have left. We need to know, is that a maximum or minimum? Well, it opens up. So the y value is at the bottom. The vertex is at the bottom. The vertex is here. It opens up. So the vertex is down here at a minimum value. Right? And so it's a minimum. And it's at y equals -4. It's just the y from the vertex. The domain is all reals. And the range, I'm going to have trouble writing on my screen, so I'm going to put it over here. The range, it's going up, so it's y greater than or equal to, all right, that -4 from the vertex. Let's look at another example. What is the A, B, and C? A is 1, B is -4, C is 6. Does it open up or down? A is positive. It opens up. What is my axis of symmetry? -b over 2a ends up being +4 over 2, which ends up being just 2. And so x equals 2. How do I find the vertex? Well, I already know the x. So how do I find the y? I do plug it back in. So f of 2 equals 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 6. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 minus 8 is -4. Plus 6 is +2. The y-intercept is what? What is the y-intercept in this problem? The c is 6. So let's start talking about the graph. X equals 2 is the axis of symmetry. So that's my axis of symmetry. 2, 2, 2, 2 is my vertex. 6 is my y-intercept. How do I find a third point to finish and draw my U shape? This point is 2 away to the left, 2 away from the axis of symmetry. So I do go 2 to the right and put another point there. And then I go ahead and draw my U shape. Does that mean that this down here is a maximum or minimum value? Hopefully you said it was a minimum at y equals 2. And again, I'm kind of low on where I can write on my screen, so I'm going to put the domain here and the range here. The domain is all reals, and the range is y is greater than or equal to 2. Hopefully you're getting the hang of it. It all kind of does flow together once you get used to it. And I want you to show the work and go through all the steps on the homework tonight. And so in our reveal textbook, you're only doing a few problems, but please do all of those steps. Please show your work on a sheet of paper and submit that via our online portal. If you have any further questions, let me know. Have a great day.